Hey everyone, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 104, Economics. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, hey, how's everybody doing today? How you doing?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
All right, let's get started. For those of you who want to follow, the docket is in the description below the video. Uh, let's get started. All right, first article is from CNBC.com. Sears chairman Eddie Lampert submits $4.6 billion proposal to save Sears. Sears, Sears chairman Eddie Lampert presents his plan through a bid for the company led by his hedge fund, ESL Investments. Sears filed for bankruptcy on October 15th of this year. Some of the Sears creditors have said they would rather Sears liquidate than sell to ESL Investments. I wonder why. Let's read the first couple of paragraphs. The fund run by Sears chairman Eddie Lampert, ESL Investments, submitted a $4.6 billion proposal on Thursday to help save the bankrupt retailer with the purchase of 500 stores. Sears Holdings, which owns Sears department stores and Kmart, filed for bankruptcy on October 15th. In previous court filings, it has said it was in talks with ESL about going going concern bid that would that could help the company emerge from bankruptcy. The offer the offer outlined Thursday included up to $950 million in cash through an asset-based loan facility, a credit bid of $1.8 billion, and the assumption of roughly $1.1 billion in liabilities. The liabilities assumed include gift cards, points from its Your Shop Away loyalty program, and protection agreements from Sears Home Services. Other funds include additional cash, notes, and the rollover of cash collateral. Should the offer be approved, it would help about 50,000 Sears in 50,000 of Sears' 68,000 employees retain their jobs. ESL said the new company would reinstate the severance program it had in place prior to Sears bankruptcy filing. ESL also said ESL Investments continues to believe in Sears Holdings' immense potential to evolve and operate profitability as a going concern with a new capitalization and organizational structure. ESL wrote in the letter. So ES all right, let me read this one last paragraph. ESL may face other competition in his bid for Sears. A quote stock and horse bidder will be named on December the 15th in bankruptcy court. That bidder will set the floor for other potential offers. It could not be immediate. Could not be immediately determined whether others are looking to buy the company. I wonder who that stock and horse bidder is.
I do too.
What's your take on this?
Um, through previous hangouts, we've spoken about how Sears and going to bankrupt, stores are shutting down. Even in some articles, they were showing pictures of different departments in Sears. It looked like ghost towns. How different suppliers have broken their contract with Sears, and it department stores, the ones that still open, just look like ghost towns. It's commendable that they're trying to save it um, through this ESL investments. With the turning tide of how consumerism is being structured with this Amazon effect, with retail stores closing down, not just Sears, but other retail stores such as JC, uh, Macy's. I don't see how saving that. The article says that they want to save 500 Sears stores, right?
Hmm.
I don't see how that's going to work out, especially when there's a economic downturn around the corner.
Mhm.
It seems like some people gonna be throwing away money, and I agree with the initial investors. They just want to see everything liquidated. They see Sears more valuable in liquidated right now in a liquidated state than in a saved state. I just agree with them.
Mhm. Well, you also have to factor in that it, it may be profitable if they buy it back and then they just go strictly online, right? For
I
whatever
see.
reason, they sold off Craftsman to Black and Decker, I think a quarter or so ago. So Black and Decker, Stanley Black and Decker actually owns Craftsman now. Um, Kenmore was actually the branding I think was bought out for like less than $400 million, something dirt cheap.
Hmm.
On the capitalist scale, it was very dirt cheap. So I'm not sure what they're gonna plan to do with it. I can see them turning it into a boutique shop, right? You could probably sell EVs and bikes and micro transportation and stuff like that. That might work. That if you want to turn your retail floor space into showroom floor space for cars, right? For ride sharing, micro transportation, EVs, that could work. You could definitely make a profit doing that.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I agree with you. If they open up, if they're successful in this buyout and they open up Sears stores exactly the way they were since Sears went to a department store concept, then it's not going to survive. It's just going to waste change their whole strategy. Like you said, going online or having a floor model based system. The online thing, how
They can sell tiny houses.
they can sell, really?
Yeah, floors. I should say floors. Sears has a lot of retail space, floor space, right? So you're talking about the average floor space inside Sears is anywhere between 80 to 100,000 square feet. That's a lot of space.
Really?
Yeah, most Sears is large because you have to take into consideration Sears auto lobby, whatever it is, where they service cars and stuff like that. Those facilities had a lot of floor space,
Mm,
and then they had the clothing and stuff separate from the tools department and stuff like that. So they had a lot of space to offer. What I'm saying is those places that had those allotted space available, you can push a whole lot of product inside there from a EV perspective, from a tiny house perspective, because take in consideration a tiny house is only about 600 square feet.
mhm.
If you got 100,000 square feet, you have a lot of space to accommodate those type of products.
So what you're saying, take the retail space that they already know,
Hmm.
gut it out, and sell retail space in a like in a open floor plan fashion.
Right.
That it
That's what it sounds like they're trying to do. So it sounds like they're trying to repurpose the spaces that they do have.
okay.
Um, it, it's we don't know all the details, right? So we only following what the article says, but based off of what's been going on, I mean, Home Depot never seems to you know lack traffic inside the store. I mean, it's always full, no matter what time of the season it is and what time of the day it is. It always has some form of foot traffic inside there because most of the products that are sold in there can't be bought online, right? You can't just buy lumber and have it shipped to your house,
Mm.
through an app. It doesn't work that way.
Okay, so the Sears open up their store and have and be more of a wholesale, but not wholesale. Um, how am I trying to say this? Be more of a wholesale seller of, okay, invite wholesalers to buy up space in their store in order for them to sell things. Okay. Well, it is different, I would say, what Sears is normally thought to be, and they have changed before from a what was it when they first came out? More of a catalog retailer. Now they became a department store. So something has to work.
Yeah. But I think that mystery horse bidder might be Jeff Bezos.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeff
Fact,
Bezos of Amazon. Ooh, please
well, you
explain that.
factor in if you factor in what Jeff Bezos makes in an hour, he can bid for that in only a few hours,
He can
right?
what?
So he can bid for that
Hmm.
in only a few hours, right? He makes $186 $186,000 a minute or something like that, or every 4 hours, something like that. So what I'm saying here is that Jeff Bezos has enough cash on deck to finish buying out those facilities in the rest of the Sears debt, and to accommodate all of their assets, and to be resell those and on Amazon. He could easily do that, or he could turn those old facilities into Amazon Go centers, right? So he could turn them into like a mega Whole Foods and stuff like that, and people just walk in without any cashiers or anything, and just walk back out because the structure is already built.
Hmm.
That makes it 10 times easier for him to actually create new stores in areas where people already exist.
Right. So Amazon wouldn't have to build new stores, and he can get existing brick and mortar stores on a cheap.
Yeah, if you think about where Sears Sears is always located where people are. It's not located away from people. It's located
Right.
right into the heart of the communities where people live.
Now, will he? Okay, okay. Let's say it is Jeff Bezos. Okay, hey, how did you come up with that anyway?
Jeff is in the retail market.
Okay, let's say good. Okay, that's a good one. I'll give you that one. Let's say it is Jeff Bezos.
Hmm.
He would purchase the existing article said 500 Sears stores, right?
Yeah.
He would purchase oof, the existing 500 Sears brick and mortar stores under under Amazon, not under under Amazon. So, God, Lee, man, that would make Amazon huge.
Depends
That
on how they want to. Depends on how they want to spin it, right? Cause eh, maybe it might just be like an Amazon Sears or Sears Amazon or Amazon by Sears, something like that. It could be rebranded in many different ways. But the point that I'm making here is that structurally, it makes sense for Jeff to even get into something like this.
it
He doesn't have
does.
he doesn't have to build anything from the ground up. He doesn't have to get building permits that are going to be lengthy or questionable because he has to dig up the street to bring more power in, bring more utilities in.
It's
That stuff is
already there
already existing structure.
in malls, standalone Sears stores. Golly, that's a good one, man. And Amazon has bookstores now, like brick and mortar bookstores. They have
Hmm.
something else. They already have obviously Whole Foods, and you like you said, they can make some of those Sears stores strategic warehouses.
Hmm. Right. And plus, this makes Amazon look good on the stock market. Um, Amazon makes a big purchase for Sears acquisition of assets and debt.
They will make their trillion. They will make Amazon $1 trillion company, a legitimate, not no. You know, we make our money on peripherals, but a legitimate $1 trillion company.
Right. And when you think about where Whole Foods exists in areas with high income.
Hmm.
Sears exists in places where there's very low income. Kmart too, right? It exists in
Oh,
those rural areas. So there is
I
a
can-
there is a gap in one person needs to get to Whole Foods and one person needs to get to Sears.
That will cover the first and last mile, a perceived first and last mile problem too, because they can bring Whole Foods everywhere. Whole Foods will be like would compete as a grocery store with the likes of other like Kroger's in Chicago, Jewel Osco. That's a
Well,
God.
it puts the squeeze on Target. It puts the squeeze on Piggly Wiggly and Walmart, right? Because Walmart competes with Sears in that aspect in some regards, because Sears has other retail goods, right?
And
So it positions Amazon in a strong area where they can cover food, they can cover clothing, and they can cover books and other same day deliveries because they can their facilities can be routed through a multi chain, right? A multi route operation because
and
they already have Amazon Prime trucking, right? So your 18 wheelers dump logistics there, take off, go to the next facility, the next state, and so on and so forth.
right, and they deliver on Sundays, and Amazon can continuously roll out on a mass scale their cashless stores.
Right. That's the only person I can think of that would be a dark horse bidder.
I will say that it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Or it could be Buffett, right? It could be Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, right? Because Warren Buffett is really big into that the staples, right? He's into the staples as well because he has his own farming and things like that. He could be a competitor to that.
But Berkshire Hathaway is more of a holding company.
It is a holding company, but think about strategically where um, Buffett is, right? Think about where Buffett's mindset is because where he thinks, the way he thinks. Don't think about it from Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay, Buffett is more of a staples guy, which I agree. But see, I haven't heard of um Warren Buffett other than the 2008 economic crisis when the government begged him to buy something. Other than that, wait, no. He does tend to buy out companies that
He likes companies that are on their knees.
yeah.
Yeah. So he thinks in that way too, right? So to him this is cheap.
Yeah,
If he could buy the debt, if he could acquire companies through debt consolidation, that's cheap to him, right?
Okay. Yeah,
If you think about Jeff Bezos is just an 800-pound gorilla, and he says, "Oh, I'm just going to buy it anyways." It doesn't matter whether it's on his knees or it's standing on his feet. I'm going to buy it, right? So he went after Whole Foods. There was no real reason to go for Whole Foods outside of the fact of its demographic. The demographic has high income.
It wasn't a logical reason. Like you said, he is an 800-pound gorilla. But okay, my thing with Buffett is he's old school, and yes, he would buy Sears, but he would have to change Sears to update it to a more modern way. And I understand people will say, well, he can just hire people. But Buffett is Buffett. Buffett thinks, okay, I agree with him buying it, but updating it. That's where I'm iffy on updating to a more millennial setting because millennials are the biggest cohort in America. So that's my disconnect right there.
Well, if you going back over the article discusses that there would have to be restructuring of we didn't read the whole article, but in the article it discusses restructuring of previous agreements that they've had with employees and whatnot. So basically, your employees would just be nothing but contractors. They won't get any benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about the digitalization aspect. eBay and Sears has always worked together in the background. I think Sears has a eBay store or
Mhm.
store on eBay. So I think that's where a lot of their refurbished stuff gets sold. So it wouldn't surprise me that if eBay wants to survive, they become a an investor into this as well to leverage themselves against Amazon.
Now the article said that Dark Horse, the Dark Horse investors supposed to be revealed on the 15th
It's
of
next
this
next
month.
Friday, next Friday,
Hmm.
next Saturday.
Next Saturday. Okay,
Mhm. But
definitely.
speculation is always good on this hangout. So
Yes. Okay, I would say between the two that we just discussed, I
hmm
would say Jeff Bezos is a more or is a better fit
hmm
because of all the positive that can be gained out of that.
hmm maybe Sheldon Outerman.
Okay, who was that?
Oh, that's another another big whale.
Hmm.
I think we should do a hangout
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of these days. Just identifying whales. Maybe
yeah,
Dollar Will. Dollar Will could probably
yeah,
chime in on that. He knows a lot of whales.
yeah. He can host that. Dollar Will,
Yeah, yeah. We can do
shout
that.
out. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah. Let's go on to the next one. All right, this one is from TRT World. GM to close 7 factories and fire thousands.
Mm.
What's your take on this?
Um, good informational 4 minute, 30-second article. Uh, they're basically talking about everything that we spoke about in the past weeks, months, especially the last time when we spoke about GM firing not eight, I saw eight on the screen, 15,000 people. And that's just minimum because you have the other supply chain that involved in supplying GM with parts. So you multiply that 15 by 2, 3, 4. It can get up there. Now they're firing 8,000 more, which is a minimum. So you add more supply chain, multiply that by 2, 3, 4, and that can get up to a lot of people. And the article did specifically say if you, I know people are going to be mad, like, oh, not people listening to this, but people be mad, oh, GM firing these people. But they did say they are restructuring their future um, car industry on GM. They're cutting out Impalas. They said people don't buy sedans. American public don't buy sedans in large quantities anymore. They buy more SUVs and pickup trucks. So they're cutting out these sedans and they're going to replace them with autonomous vehicles. Then on top of that, they said this firing of 8,000 jobs and closing factories is part of saving money to put it into this I want to say reconstruction of adding autonomous vehicles to their fleet,
Mhm.
and the stock price went up because the investors, I guess the investors like to hear that. So, and you see these people with these T-shirts on, American made, you know, oh, well, this is America. We buy American cars, that all that, is they're doing all that to their detriment. It's killing them
Mhm.
in terms of livelihoods. It's
Got to be a black woman on screen with that earpiece in the ear.
oh, did you see that? I thought that was so ridiculous. Like, why, why? Right there, that Bluetooth. But anyway, yeah, you gotta change with the times, and if it's like they're telling you, hey, we're going the autonomous vehicle way, but only thing you hear is you're firing 15,000 people.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah, they would have to retool some of these facilities. I'm not sure how they would go about, doing electric vehicles. I don't know how about the retooling process works in manufacturing, but I'm pretty sure that must take some time. But
Yeah.
what it sounds like to me is like all these car companies, Ford included, are trying to get out of selling cars and sell transportation services, right? So your autonomous vehicles are no longer. Um, it's not like, oh well, I wonder who's going to buy it. No, it's going to be sold anyways to somebody, right? Some either budget enterprise, zip car, um, some private transportation service looking to sublease these vehicles out in a way for ride sharing purposes, right? They're thinking long term, and they're also looking at micro transportation, so Bird, um, Jump, all these other micro transportation services.
Mhm.
Um, they're thinking long term. They're thinking long term on this, so they're getting rid of all that stuff now. Just clear it out right now because we ain't got no need for all of these mass produced vehicles that ain't going to be moving anywhere, right?
Right.
No purpose in keep producing them.
They
So
don't sell.
not only do they not sell, when they do get sold, they get repoed in a month and a half.
45 days.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's not funny, but it
Hmm.
kind of is. Yeah, but that was a good one though. That was a good informational video by TRT.
Hmm.
Uh, I suggest everybody listen to that one. That was a good one.
All right. The next article is from thehill.com. Yes, student loans really are making millennials go broke.
I see. Thank you, millennials.
Hmm.
Respect. I'm a millennial.
10 years after America's largest financial institutions
Gotta add
up
that
in
right there.
what happened?
No, I was just saying you had to add. But no. Never mind. Go ahead.
10 years after America's largest financial institutions upend the economic livelihood of millions of millennials entering the job market, a new report from the Federal Reserve confirms what we already knew. Millennials are broke. Underline. Post recession, the banks regained their footing. The housing market stabilized and company earnings rose. But while big industries were thrown a lifeline, a whole generation, the largest workforce in U.S. history, face escalating college tuition costs with few streams of money. Now, 44 million Americans are shouldering $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loans, with young people under the age of 35 holding almost half of the debt.
Mm.
The Federal Reserve's report is one more piece of evidence that proves that student debt is stripping value out of our financial lives in tangible ways. Earlier this year, through an analysis that looked at the percentage of people's paychecks that goes towards repaying student debt, we learned that millennials as a whole, and particularly millennials of color, uh, that means you black women, have the largest portion of their paychecks being siphoned away to pay down student loan debt. In areas with high population of low income, borrowers and young people, such as New York City and Washington, D.C., student loan borrowers have debt burdens of 10% or higher. To put that into perspective, that's 4% more than the average American spends on groceries. Daniela, a 24-year-old Latina staffer at a Washington D.C. nonprofit with a side hustle at a local farmers market, personifies the student debt crisis. She attended a small liberal arts school to study political science, where she racked up student loan debt. Um, it is a long article. I think it's an interesting read. For those of you who want to read, it's in the description below. But I think I'll read this one last paragraph. Every month, Daniela pays Navient and another private lender $860 in student loan payments, a third of her monthly income. Her DC area rent eats up another third, which leaves the final third of paycheck for essential living expenses like utilities, food, and healthcare. Should I read another article? I'll read another part of the article. A recent report released by the Department of Education's Inspector General shows her story is not unusual. Navient's practice of driving struggling borrowers into expensive repayment plans is widespread. Moreover, her story is emblematic of how racial wealth gaps manifest themselves for students seeking a degree, with young people of color carrying and being held back by disproportionate levels of debt. Millennials are the most educated cohort in American history, but in uneven economic recovery that forced many of us to take on large sums of student debt, along with unregulated student loan industry, created a troubling economic situation where millennials like Daniela are earning wages that are lower than the people who her age earned in 1984. Interesting. So it's a good article. What's your take on
um, I don't know if people have seen the movie The Big Short, but the character Christian Bale played, he mentioned in the movie that after the tech bust in 2000, the housing market started with subprime mortgages, first in small cities, then it grew across the country. Well, after the housing market went bust in 2008, all of a sudden you start hearing these stories of, oh, schools getting expensive more and more. Like it was a period where um tuition went up here at high rates. So a lot of us millennials have been saying, hey man, I understand past generations told us to go to school, get education, which is sound advice.
this?
But the, the trick that they put us in was the powers that be, that is, they made schooling more expensive. So even though that's sound advice, go to school to get a better life, the irony is when we did that, we didn't have a better life because we got to be paid that high tuition off.
Mhm.
Now I understand that tuition, well, not tuition, what you call that, student loan debt is not, huh?
No, it says student loan debt.
Yeah, student loan debt is not on your credit report or something like that, but it's a
No, you
one.
can't get it off you can't get it off of your credit report. It's actually it stays on there for life.
Mm, but it's a $1 trillion debt, countrywide debt that's just getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
This is this is a this you talk about Jeff Bezos, the 800-pound gorilla. This is the 800-pound gorilla. I don't want.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah. The problem is that Navient and the rest of these crooks, are basically robbing people because there's no real there's no real benefit to paying student loans. It's not like, oh, if everybody paid off $1.5 trillion in student loans, that's going to boost the economy. There is no boost in the economy by paying off student loans. It's a
Mm.
joke. It's you're stealing money from people, and you as an institution are protected from racketeering. You basically have a gun to people's heads because if you don't pay your student loans off, there's cases where people have got their passports revoked, can't
Mhm.
leave the country. It's like child support now. People are going to jail for not paying their student loans. I think the first person to go to jail was a black man. I think he missed like $100 on his student loans and they locked his ass up. It's like the new child support, literally.
If that becomes more widespread, A, it's gonna be a lot of people in jail. B, that's gonna boost up the um prison, and that's gonna have an adverse effect on people trying to get a job because hey, You've been in jail
Mm-hmm.
because you can't pay your bills
Mm-hmm.
because of this. That is a hell of a slippery slope if that becomes more widespread.
Hey, what's going on, Dollar Will?
What's going on, Dollar Will?
What's up? How my favorite YouTubers?
Oh, no, we good.
Good. Man.
Good, good, good. Yeah, I'm just listening to what y'all talking about with the that debt. I don't. It's like that number is hard to wrap your head around. I can't imagine that. Well, I can't imagine people paying it, and I can't imagine the government letting people off the hook either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, straight up. I mean, there might have to be some way where maybe you may becomes tax deductible or something. I don't know, something, because that's gonna become a dead weight in the marketplace or in the economy when this downturn. We're just getting started with the stock market decline. Whenever it's over and all these prices correct, revert to the mean, as it is said. The engine of the economy is going to be these millennials. And so if they are debt ridden at the same time that they're trying to start families and expected to buy houses and cars and other big ticket items which make the economy go, how can that work if they are already underwater, you know?
That's the same thing with the article we just read before about GM not wanting to produce cars. Millennials aren't buying sedans anymore. They can't afford it.
Right. And you went to school. Imagine you did all the things the previous generation told you to do, which I reiterate, it's sound advice. It's just um, has been switched on us. You go to school, you rack up debt. You get married, get a divorce, you got to pay child support.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a house, you have this debt. Everything that worked for past generations, for millennials, and soon to be Generation Z or Zennials, it's horror for us.
Well, that you can blame, and I'm gonna rattle some cages here. That's one of the hazards of capitalism and a free market. Because there's a lot of research that went into my generation. I'm age 54. I would be the age of, say, the parents of the millennials. A lot of research went in to looking at our values, and they knew that we valued education, and we wanted our kids to have a better education than we had, and that we would be willing to pay almost anything for it. And sure enough, that turned education into a business. It was never like that until you guys came along. Business, I mean, education was not a business like that. People educated themselves. I mean, they paid for their own education. A 1 year routinely cost maybe like $2,000 or $2,500. When I went to Howard University in 1982, I had grants and some money from family, and the rest I paid on my own, and for the sum of $2,500 a year.
Listen, in Russia, if you score 89 on your exam, you get to go to school for free for the rest of your life.
Wow. See, yeah. How can we be? Well, something's going to happen, because I remember when Bernie Sanders, when he was campaigning, and we were talking about this issue just then, about from a competitiveness standpoint. Americans were saying, well, we can't make college free, and then people would bring up facts like you just stated. The other countries were doing it, and then other people were doing like O'Shea Duke Jackson. They started leaving the country, and it became apparent that America was going to suffer a serious brain drain. So now, what do you know? In 2 years, we have a lot of cities are making community college just about free. So in 2 years, we got there, and which nobody thought was possible just 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So something's got to give, and just from a competitive standpoint, we're going to have something's going to change to make college free or cheap. Now, what's going to happen to the people carrying the debt? That's the sticky one. They may just get left holding the bag.
The problem, you know, in according to the article, the problem is ultimately that it creates a racial wealth gap, right? So the most happier millennials who are in debt are actually black and brown, right? Whatever brown is supposed to be considered, right? Latino. So we know that there's been this big push. You know, black women have the highest enrollment rate in college amongst all demographics of women, and they outnumber men in college too. So we know that black women are carrying the bag here.
Well,
In terms of
if in light of what you just said and what I was saying about the research into the market research into the buying habits and the values of a particular population, if you think about the new wealth or the new black and brown people came into a lot of us came into the middle class. A lot of these Gen Xers and boomers, we're the first to come into the middle class since we've been in America. So it wouldn't take a whole lot of deep science to go, you know, to figure out that black and brown population would be would pay a premium for education for their children. The people were not protected. That's freedom. Buyer beware.
But something does have to change, because this as is ravaging those, I would say, the middle class, and ravaging those who see that education is their way out. But it's fool's gold right now. It's fool's gold, because you get the education, but you are beholden the rest of your life to pay off that debt, which makes your way of life lower. So you're really not leaving. It's a rat race.
Another big lie we were told. We were told that online school, online education would be cheaper than brick and mortar education. That so when we were paying $2,500, you know, to $5,000 a year, and when we started, you know, hearing all this stuff about online education, we're like, well, with no building, it should be cheaper. No, it increased. Now that cannot be justified, other than just greed, exploiting the people because you can. There's freedom to be exploited. That's part of it too.
well, that's why EDX was created, was because of this issue.
Right.
So all the institutions, well, MIT and Harvard said we're just going to put our classes online, and then it was only recently that they decided that they're going to start doing degrees through edX. Right before it was just classes. Now it's full degrees on edX. So
I applaud them. I think the impact of that is when you have Ivy League institutions with these huge endowments. I mean, they have a huge endowment. Harvard and Princeton, Yale, all those, they have Cornell. They have a ridiculously large endowments. I think they're going to probably end up. I mean, it could very well cause a lot of other universities to close. Other universities that don't have endowments, they can't afford to offer free education. What's going to happen to them? A lot of them are probably going to close.
And all the testimonies I've read about EDX, you know, people are very satisfied with it. I don't know anybody I haven't seen any reviews that says, "Oh, this was whack, this sucks," you know, wasn't worth it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they even have Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday sales on their you know, certificates and stuff like that. Because most of the classes are free. It's just that if you want a paper voucher or a certificate to say that you've attended, you just have to pay for that. And to me, it's relatively cheap. It's less than a pair of Jordans. I can't see how you can go wrong with that. But the main point that I'm making is that they saw a necessity to put this level of high level of education online, and the government is basically saying, well, we're not going to do anything about Navient because we just ain't going to do anything about it. The reality is you have people pouring money into a financial institution that does not have a return on investment in the areas where they live. Right?
Right.
You're a poor person in DC, and 1/3 of your income is going towards a student loan debt. That same institution doesn't exist in your neighborhood. So it's not like there's a recurring reciprocity of investment.
And there's no type of counseling which says that what you're about to the obligation you're about to take on, this debt obligation you're about to take on, is not can't be justified by the degree that you're pursuing. There's no level, no consumer protection at that level, no requirement that that person be informed that the average salary for the degree you're pursuing is only X amount of money. Nobody's required to tell the student that.
Well, I think Obama. I think after the collapse, I think Obama actually in 2012 had them change the literature when you sign up. So it's more in layman's terms and more clear and concise. It's supposed to be. I haven't seen the documentation to prove it, but it's supposedly that's a part of the restructuring of these student loans and whatnot. So
No, just for my clarity, how much do the certificates cost on EDX? You say if you go through the free program, you just want the knowledge, and you're too cheap to buy the certificate, you can take courses free. But if you want the certificate to prove that you completed the program satisfactorily, generally, how much am I talking about shelling out?
Anywhere between $50 to $1,000 for a micro master's degree is the most expensive, right? So your micro master's certificate, which leads into a master's degree, usually is anywhere between 500 to $1,000.
Oh, okay. So when you finish the micro masters, just roughly, how much more do you have to go to get the masters?
It depends. So a micro master's is anywhere between 12 to 16 credits, and then a full master's degree is about 32 credits. So you're doing roughly half on through EDX, and then the other half they basically just walk you through. So because all your registration and stuff is already done on EDX, so it's just a matter of mapping you back into the institution's online program, so it continues.
Oh, okay. So
And
yeah, I
they
see.
do have master's degree programs now. So I think they've launched about 10 or 12 master's degree programs this summer. So you can get a full master's degree at an Ivy League institution for example, Georgia Tech has a computer science master's degree for $10,000, cheapest in the country. You can't beat it. Even a community college doesn't have that level of education for that price.
Wow. Yeah, especially if somebody's on the hook for much more than that for undergraduate. Why stop now?
Yeah, I think platforms like Udacity, EDX, are going to be game changers in how they deliver education to people, because now Africans are actually able to log into EDX now and get the same education, and their government would actually pay for the certificate or whatever it is.
Wow.
Same thing in Latin America. So there will be no more in the next 10 years. There will be no more sending Africans to America to get this high level degree program. That sort of sending your best over there. You're gonna bring the education to Africans, and Africans are gonna basically acquire all this education through online means.
Powerful.
So now, if you go EDX and Udacity, you can continuously get your education. There's no excuse now. If a certification costs $200, $50, now you can, especially because a lot of the courses are self-paced. So you can take a self-paced course. You can pace yourself to the certification. So even if you work overtime or work 2 jobs, you can still put a little bit of time, hour and a half, into that certification. So there's no excuse now. There's no real big excuses. This is what I'm trying to get at. And you almost have it's beginning to be a more global competition, So Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before you start seeing, whoever is the first one to get their PhD on EDX will be a game changer. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyways, we have to move on to the next article. All right, this one is from BusinessInsiders.com. People aren't paying their credit cards, and more accounts are being shut down, and it could be a sign that economic clouds are darkening. I'm not sure if that's Wrigley Field or.
I think that's Fenway.
Ain't no green monster there.
Rudy.
The economy is robust. Unemployment is sitting at 3.7%. It's lowest mark in nearly half a century, and interest rates, though moving upward, are still relatively low. So why are credit card delinquencies, application rejections, and involuntary account closures all on the upswing? That's what Federal Reserve Bank of New York would like to know. The Fed released the results this week of its Credit Access Survey, a quarterly report on U.S. borrowers, and it surfaced a couple of alarming trends that suggest credit card issuers are getting skittish and empowering back risk. Both credit card rejection rates and involuntary account closures are on the rise. Rejection rates for credit card applications came in at 20.8% in October, an October survey, up from 14.4% a year ago, while rejection rate for credit limit increases ticked up to 31.7% compared to 24.9% a year ago. Meanwhile, the proportion of respondents who had an account shut down by a lender reached its highest level since the Fed launched the Credit Access Survey in 2013. In October, 7.2% surveyed consumers reported having an account involuntary shut down in the previous 12 months, up from 5.7% last year and 4.2% in 2016. Most of these account shutdowns are credit cards or retail store cards. A separate New York Fed report released last month, the quarterly report on household debt and credit, produced a similar finding. The report, which mines Equifax consumer credit reports for data, showed an uptick in the past year and a half in account closures, again, primarily from credit cards. Why are credit card issuers rejecting more customers and shuttering more accounts? This is just a graph of involuntary closures versus account closures.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say. The reason is, I say the reason is.
Let me just get to this paragraph real quick, and we'll tear this apart. One reason is that they may be spooked by the increasing number of people who aren't paying off their credit cards. Credit card delinquency rates began to climb sharply towards the end of 2016. A trend hasn't reversed in 2018, according to the Fed data. Given the healthy state of economy and low unemployment, an increase in delinquencies is potentially concerning, according to the Fed, and most likely signals that credit card companies issued debt too freely and to too less trustworthy borrowers in preceding years. And now they are trying to reverse the course. That's consistent with the fact that credit card issuance inflated substantially starting in 2013. Credit card balances were up from $670 billion in the third quarter of 2013 to $844 billion in the same quarter of this year. And that the sharpest increase in delinquencies is among borrowers with lower credit scores. According to the Fed data, the increase in delinquencies among higher credit score brackets, however, suggests loose lending wasn't limited to subprime borrowers, the Fed points out. We just look at this chart real quick. Let me see who is in the 520. So from a percentile, they have the highest delinquencies. I mean, yeah, they have the highest delinquencies amongst all, and then your 720 guys and your 760 guys have the lowest. Interesting. Dollar Will, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to go back, read that, go scroll that last part you read. The second to the last not the last paragraph, the paragraph right before the last paragraph that you read.
Given the
That
healthy
last
state,
line. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Given the healthy state of the economy and low unemployment, an increase in delinquencies is potentially concerning, according to the Fed, and most likely signals that card companies issue too freely and to less trustworthy borrowers in preceding years, and now trying to reverse course.
Now, why would they do that? We talk about the business cycle on this show a lot. When they know that the economy is strong and have a lot of growth left, and the interest rates are low, you know, you're getting bombarded with those 0% interest rate cards coming in the mail. They just trying to get that money loaned out so they can make interest on it later. And it's like, you know, the party's never going to end. That's what they think. The good times are here. They're never going to end. They're just giving credit out freely. But now they know technical analysis too. They know that they're not buying this crap. They know this economy is slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
They know it's slowing down, and they have some debt on their book. They have some. I'm not going to call it debt. They have some accounts that they know are going to become delinquent. And so they're trying to not add to that amount right now. So they raise the requirements for getting that credit card. And so we're going through the transition from 0% to now interest rates are rising, the economy slowing down. So they get stingy with the credit card. So that's another sign that the economy is rolling over.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that the macro affects the micro. If the larger economy is slowing down, what nobody's talking about is when the economy slows down, businesses stop taking out loans in order to grow the business by opening up a new division, coming out with another product line, hiring more workers. Well, when the economy slows down, the reverse of that happens. They start closing facilities and laying people off. And in that environment, nobody, you know, people with, you know, just their luck, the people that's getting laid off will end up being some of these new cards that they've issued out.
Mm-hmm.
So they get stingy with it. So the whole way you do business is different when the economy is trending down versus trending up. That's my theory of what's going on.
I know. I know. Can you hear us? Dollar Will, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
All right, I'll just give my analysis because I know it's away right now. But one of the things about credit card issuing is that this stuff is done by algorithm. So they pull records based on credit scores, right? So they have access to this wide database that's publicly available from many of these institutions. So their algorithms go out and seek out these moderately viable people to lend money out to through these credit cards, and they say, oh, well, Dollar Will lives in such and such place, so therefore that demographic, and we're going to issue out a credit card here with 0% interest, right? And then you apply, and then what happens is the algorithm again says accept or deny. So a lot of these acceptance and the denials and these shuttering downs, right, come through algorithms that are in place in their systems. Because if you go to a bank and you ask them, well, why am I being denied? They really can't give you an answer either because they're not the ones who actually denied you.
So they don't know what's programmed, what the algorithm is screening for.
Right. Right. It could be a variety of things, right? Because there's been discussion over the years about Honda, for example, Honda was accused. Actually, there was a case brought against Honda Financial for charging higher interest rate to African Americans than their white counterparts for the same vehicle, even with the same credit score.
Right.
Right, and they had to pay out $34 million in fines for that. But my point in saying all this is that something in the algorithm is telling them to do something to make these choices, and that's how it's really done, from my understanding. So when a credit card is being rejected or it's being terminated, it's actually done through an algorithm. So who knows why this is even happening? Could be some bad coding, could be a variety of things.
No, I don't think. I think you're onto something. I don't think it's bad coding. I've also seen data that show that black folks are routinely charged a higher mortgage rate when they buy, when they get that initial mortgage. So if they already got the data, they know your race and where you live, because you have a mortgage application on file. So it's not that hard to figure out where the foreclosures are going to hit.
Yeah, there's a lot of racialization in coding that's happening. So, I mean, that's just the early stages from 2007, 2008, right? So there's redlining inside the credit card industry as well.
Yeah, I remember when I think this might have been that 2009 decline. Prince George's County had like one of the highest foreclosure rates in America. And that's, everybody knows that's black prosperity right there, so yeah, so we kind of live right at the limit, whatever the requirement threshold is for us to get that mortgage, we go right up to that amount. we don't it's like a car, when you walk in a lot and they go, well, how much you have to spend, which I hate that question. And they're going to put you in that car that's going to sap every penny out of your pocket. And that catches, and you can get by with that when the economy is good and nobody gets sick in your house. But, when the economy slows down, they know. It's documented that we overspend when it's time to buy things like houses and cars, that we go right up to the limit of what the debt to income ratio allows. And so you can just look in a zip code where there are a lot of high price homes that blacks own. It's not that hard to anticipate that that's where your foreclosures are going to be, because we borrow right up to the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you tie all these credit card delinquencies and rejections and shutting downs to student loan debt to GM and the rest of the car companies not wanting to manufacture vehicles because they're not being sold because millennials can't afford to buy them because they're in student loan debt. They can't get access to good credit. Mortgage rates are or I should say mortgage applications are not being filled out because people can't afford it.
Right. But on a bright note, let's turn this to a bright note. Good news. When these downturns historically, they don't last that long. They're not year and a half to 2.5 years, somewhere in there. They don't. It's like real nasty, short time. So even the quote unquote Great Depression, it didn't last that long. So hopefully it happens fast. And the millennials that'll be the time, not now, but that will be the time for millennials to get into flipping. I hear people on YouTube talking about flipping homes and stuff right now. I'm like, I wouldn't flip with your money. Not right now. This is not, the market doesn't support it. But that time will come around, probably sooner. So this is the time to learn about it, so that when the bottom comes and you got your money together because you've been listening to the Black Brain Trust and you've been reading the charts and getting the heck out of the stuff that's going down, like all that big sexy stuff, like the tech stocks and the retailers. That's not where you want to be, you know. And so at the end of this, if you happen to have made some money, you'll be in a prime position to go and flip some property.
Mm-hmm.
So you got time on your side. That's the good news. You're young, and the millennials, they have their youth, and they have energy, and they have knowledge, and you know, and information. So they'll be all right.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the next article. So this one is from Yahoo Finance. FDIC chair. We need to be preparing for the next downturn. Interesting. One of the nation's top banking regulators said Monday that she is staying vigilant for the next downturn and echoed concerns with leverage lending. In her first televised interview since becoming the head of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Jelena McWilliams told Yahoo Finance that the economy and the banking industry are doing well. Really, things things are looking good. Having said that, it is times like this that we need to be looking ahead and preparing for the next downturn. McWilliams is closely watching leverage lending, the business of large and risky business loans, that has the attention of regulators and lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Last week, the Federal Reserve released a report flagging growth in a non-financial leverage loans in non-financial leverage loans and warned that credit standards appear to have deteriorated over the past 6 months. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the third major bank regulator, similarly reported that leverage lending has suffered from eased underwriting standards and warned banks to be mindful of their direct and indirect exposure to corporate debt markets, student loans. McWilliams says she is looking at the bank exposure for small and large firms alike to leverage loans and the collateralized loans obligations that they are rolled into. For the most part, she said risk lives outside the banking industry, but noted that community banks have really high collateralized loan obligation holdings. CLOs were particularly popular securities for the bank searching for yield during the. Sorry about that. We need to be constantly monitoring what's happening in the marketplace and how banks are positioned. McWilliams said, "Do banks hold enough capital against debt?" Actually, I won't read this whole article. Actually, I'll read a few more paragraphs of it. Yeah, not everyone is so concerned. Fed Vice Chair of Supervision Randall Quarles mentioned that there are enough touch points between the banking industry and the non-regulated financial sector for regulators to adequately observe non-bank risk. Non-regulated financial sector. I wonder what that is. Sally Mae, Navient. McWilliams, who joined the FDIC in the summer of 2018 after being appointed by President Donald Trump in 2017, said another big talking point in the banking industry is the fight for deposits. Ever since the Fed began its path of gradual rate hikes, banks have strategically timed increases in the interest rates that they pay out of deposit. With the Fed continuing to raise rates, banks are now fighting to keep the deposits from neighboring or online banks that may offer more favorable interest rates. So, what's your take on this, Dollar Will? Preparing for the next downturn.
Yeah. I mean, when she was talking about collateralized loans, what is she talking about? Home equity line of credits and second mortgages and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, she has to try. I mean, you know, she has to put a positive spin on it. but not make it sound dire, like everything's okay. But yeah, they got a lot of questionable accounts that could become delinquent. That's what I hear her saying. She's got to try to navigate that. There's really not much she can do.
Yeah, I mean, non-secure as well, right? So non-secure would or not to say non-secured. Let me go back and read it because I get it right. Need to get it right.
I'm back. I had to unmute up.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You drinking a cold one?
Nah, I had someone came in wrong.
Did you tip?
That's funny. That's funny.
Stop being cheap.
I always leave tips on.
Yeah.
They don't need it.
That's right. Tough times, struggle money.
You can go ahead, jump right in.
Yeah, I'm surprised that she spoke what she said. Obviously, people can read between the lines, and when you read between the lines, that's even more surprising that she said all this. She said there's an economic downturn correction coming without saying it's one coming. She said in a nice, polite way. I think the article at the end was talking about how bigger banks can, I may be getting this confused with another article, can offer a better percentage than smaller community banks, and how some community banks will go out of business if they can't survive. That's everything I got from this article.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with community banks is that they're being overrun by these multinational banks, or these multi-state banks, for that matter. Because if you're a small community bank, you can't compete against Bank of America. How are you going to match those rates? I mean, I still put my money into a black bank, which is One United. Black people need to support more black banks, but the problem is that those products, those instruments that they offer are not really competitive to, let's say, PNC or something like that. PNC is offering 3% interest rate on money market accounts and savings IRAs, whereas with community bank you may only see 0.60%, if that.
Yeah, I think this is we're in that time of merger and strategic alliances, mergers and acquisitions. I think that's the name of the game. Earlier you guys, I overheard you talking about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. Companies, the big companies, they have the money to be able to weather this stuff. But like you were saying, the smaller, it doesn't matter what industry we're talking about. The smaller companies, they run out of money. They run out of money, and some, the bigger companies swallow them up. So you're going to see you're going to have mergers, especially in banking. You have a lot of that because the smaller ones are not going to be able to survive.
And that's why we talked about this before. But black people need their own public banking system in these high concentrated majority areas where black people live.
And we have to support it culturally. We have to know that it's important to support it. Yeah, I've been in a credit union since I was 16 years old. And I understand it's a different structure from what you're talking about, but
yeah, alternative banking is still alternative banking. So, all right, this next article is from CNBC.com. China and the U.S. can ease trade differences in 90 days. Former central bank governor says. Xu Xiaoshan said the U.S. and China could make good strides on trade differences within 90 days. The U.S. has hit $250 billion of Chinese goods with tariffs since July. The former PBOC of governor has previously told CNBC Trump's trade tariffs won't cripple China's growing economy. Washington and Beijing can make progress on their trade differences within 3 months. For the former People's Bank of China governor Xiao Shushan told CNBC on Wednesday, "I see there's pretty high possibility to reach some sort of success during the 90-day negotiation window," Xiao said. CNBC's Geoff Cutmore at the Bow Forum in Rome. The U.S. has hit $250 billion of Chinese goods with tariffs since July, while China has retaliated by imposing duties on its own on $110 billion of American products. At a post G20 summit meeting in Argentina last weekend, Donald Trump agreed not to boost tariffs on Chinese goods from 10 to 25% on January 1st. In exchange, the White House claimed that China would buy a very substantial amount of agriculture, industrial, and energy products. Markets have gyrated over the value of that meeting, but Trump said Wednesday that he believed the Chinese President Xi Jinping would fulfill his pledges. One of the main issues raised by the U.S. is perceived unfair transfer of American technology and intellectual property to China. Xiao said that for China, it had also become very important to protect intellectual property rights. Interesting. Xiao added that Beijing had already ended technology transfer as a policy, but conceded there could still be a cause for U.S. complaint at a local government and business-to-business level. But those sort of things are relatively not so difficult for China to improve on and strengthen the existing laws, he said. The former PBOC governor also said that Beijing could help to crack down on bad guys who were using the internet to export high-strength opioids such as fentanyl to the United States, on fears that another 90 days of uncertainty could impact capital flow into China. Xiao said that while foreign direct investment into the country was a welcome addition, the domestic economy was a far bigger driver. So I think that China knows that the 10 to 25% tariff increase on January 1st was going to be a huge impact on them. $250 million is nothing. It's nothing to sneeze at. Or $250 billion is nothing to sneeze at. You don't just play games with that. That's earth-shattering or earth-shaking sort of tariff on your goods. It can basically erode a lot of companies in the manufacturing sector. Now, what I find interesting is that the transfer of technology, that China's policy of transfer of technology as a policy and intellectual property, that's something that Africa should be doing to China, right? You shouldn't. Africa should play the same game with China that China plays with the United States. Basically, if you're going to do business in China, you have to transfer your intellectual property and as well as your technology, right? Whereas in Africa, they don't really have that. They have some policies in place, but nothing as meaningful as that. And if Africa wants to move forward, this would be the way that they do it. They play ball this way.
I just think this is a pretty destructive time to have to be levying tariffs. This is not the time to make prices higher. It's just backwards in terms of timing. I'm not addressing like the political aspects of why we have to have the why we're levying tariffs, but the timing of it is what I'm, what I'm addressing, because those prices have to get passed on, and the theme of this whole show tonight is that the economy is slowing down, so it's going to affect sales of whatever the various goods if you have tariffs in a slowing economy. So I guess on the bright side, maybe the market will fall faster. Maybe we'll hit that, because that's what I'm rooting for. And policies like this, definitely, to my mind, increase the probability that the market's going to fall faster. That we're going to reach, get where we're going faster than not, which is good. So we just need to keep having these 800-point days.
I know.
I agree with you. Africa should be doing the same thing China did to America. If you want to do business over here, let's make your products. Then we need a transfer of intellectual property. There's been reports how multiple from different angles, different news pundits from different areas of YouTube news, and whoever has a voice in the mouth that says China is colonizing Africa. There's been reports inside Africa how they're taking over their different economies and so forth and so forth. I agree. Africa should say, as a collective, not just one or two countries, because there's 54 countries on that continent. That, hey, if you want us to be what America did to you, then you need to transfer over that intellectual property. If you don't want to do that, then go to Taiwan. But
they can't go to Taiwan. They don't recognize Taiwan. So
yeah, that was a joke. I would say, yeah, I agree. You can't. America put $250 billion worth of tariffs on you, and you say your economy is not slowing down, but other economists from around the world are saying, yes, your economy is slowing down, or otherwise you wouldn't have made this deal. And Trump said, albeit it's Trump saying this, he said Xi Jinping has agreed to buy a significant portion of agricultural goods as part of the deal. Is a time for Africa as a whole to strike and to say, hey, we can alleviate some of that pressure that America is putting on you. We'll buy your products, but you have to buy more from us than we're willing to buy from you. They're not in a situation to negotiate.
Well, let me say, Excalibur from the chat, he agrees with what both of you are saying about Africa, and I just want to reiterate the timing of this, because when markets slow down, inventory control becomes very important, and you end up in what do they call it? A just-in-time delivery. So you slow the whole process down. The last thing you want to do is store a whole lot of inventory, pay storage for it. So that means you're going to be buying less. So this is just like not the time to make anything cost more artificially. So we'll see.
Yeah. And when large economies like this get into a tit for tat, then little company, well, not companies, little countries, it's their time to shine. Say, hey, we'll take that off of you, but you gotta buy some from us.
All right, this next article is from newsbtc.com. South African man hands $60,000 worth of Bitcoin to thieves after being tortured. Here comes the thugs. A cryptocurrency trader has been targeted by a criminal gang in South Africa after being kidnapped and tortured. The victim eventually handed over $60,000 in Bitcoin along with cash and various other gadgets on his person at the time. Known Bitcoin trader becomes torture victim in robbery case. According to reports in local news publication Soweto Urban, a Bitcoin trader from the town of Lenseria, South Africa, has become the victim of a kidnapping, robbery, and torture. The individual, identified only as Andrew in the report, was targeted because of his known interest in cryptocurrency. Andrew had met a man on Facebook who had expressed interest in hiring him to give a presentation on digital assets. He later met the same individual in person in Cresta Center in Johannesburg and agreed to work with him at a later date. On November 16th, around 1 p.m., Andrew arrived at Meadowlands Zone 5 address given to him by the new contact. At the residence were 4 men and 2 women presumed to be the audience for presentation. According to Andrew, shortly after arriving, he was approached from behind and had a cloth held over his mouth and nose. He quickly passed out, which leads those investigating the case to believe that the material had been drugged. Andrew regained consciousness in a different room in the company of 5 people, 3 men and 2 women. It was there that he was stripped naked, assaulted, received threats to his life, and tortured with hot irons. The group demanded he transfer around 800,000 rand worth of BTC, which is about $58,000 US, to an address given to him by his attackers. He eventually relented and transferred the Bitcoin along with a further 100,000 rand from his bank account. In addition to, the group took another 3,000 rand in cash, 2 laptop computers, and a pair of iPhones. Andrew was then blindfolded and taken from the scene of his torture to Clipper Road on the R55, 550, where he was left. Interesting, he didn't kill him. Andrew is currently receiving care for the injuries he sustained at the Alberton Union Hospital Intensive Care Unit. He had several burns to his hands, legs, and torso caused by the hot iron torture he endured. An investigation is underway. So, no, I shouldn't say dollar. Well, I know. What's your take on this? You're a crypto guy. What's your take on this?
Well, fiat money is, other than being defined as something that's not backed with anything. One of the economists, if I got his name, said that the reason is believed is because these countries have guns and tanks, and if you don't take this money, then something's going to happen to you. Well, that's why it's believed. Well, now with cryptocurrencies, I can get some money. This is worth some money. So they're going to take their guns and their knives, and if you boast that, hey, which FYI, I do not have any Bitcoin. Hey, I have 113 Bitcoins, and Bitcoins is worth $10,000. Let me get one of them Bitcoins off of you. If you don't, I'm going to burn you. I'm going to torture you. I'm going to do everything I need to do get one or other Bitcoins off of you. Cryptocurrencies is, don't talk about your cryptocurrencies. Don't tell people who you know are not willing to put in the same work to get to the level you're at, are willing to become a Pookie and a Ray Ray and do these the worst and most immoral things to get money. Don't talk to them. Don't mention anything. Don't talk. You're told don't talk about how much you have in your bank, then that goes toward however much crypto a person may have. It's the same thing as money. Don't talk about it. Don't let people know how much you got. Don't even let people. It's going to come to a point that really now you should start practicing. Don't even let people know that you're interested in the space. Period. Don't even. You all see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. First of all, I have a question for you, Mike. Just some context for this robbery. Is isn't aren't kidnappings kind of common in South Africa just in general? Isn't that just that kind of extortion? Isn't that like a common scam there?
Yeah, racketeering, extortion. That's pretty common.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, so it's like it's not necessarily a crypto thing. People people get kidnapped there.
No, no. It's if we reread the article, it's the way they went about it. They couldn't they wouldn't be able to get anything out of him unless they brought him to this location to pretend like he was given this sort of
Right.
Bitcoin blockchain presentation.
Right.
Now you imagine you're in a professional environment, or what's led to be a professional environment, and you got these women there, and then and they're in the front row, and you're under the impression that this is a safe environment. Whereas on the other hand, somebody comes up right behind you with a do rag and puts it over your face and says, "Get down and lay down," right? And then drags him to his house in order to get his valuables. So that's it wasn't so much that they kidnapped him because that's just what they do. No, they had a specific target that they were looking for.
Right, but I'm saying, I believe in South Africa, rich people or people thought to be rich are targeted. Period. And that was going, and they, of course, everybody, if you target, there's a plan. There's always a plan, and this was happening before cryptocurrency. So now with cryptocurrency, you're going to have a greater number of targets. But the culture of kidnapping people, that was already in their culture. That kind of predates cryptocurrency.
Well, per the article, it specifically said cryptocurrency, and this is not an isolated case. This is
no. I'm not saying I'm not debating any of that. I'm just saying that's just how they get down there. They kidnap people, and so cryptocurrency is the new way. It's the new motive. It's the new motive.
Well, let's take South Africa out the equation. Okay. Still, everything I said still applies. Don't talk about absolutely. Hey, I got 113, 115. Oh, I just got another Bitcoin.
I guess what I'm saying is, in everywhere, yes, listen to what Lionel is saying. But if you're also in a country that just has a reputation for kidnapping people, especially be on guard there, But so yeah, it's both. Now my second question is, let's talk wallets and security right now. In the situation that this unfortunate situation this gentleman found himself in, what would have been the least secure method of say a crypto wallet in that situation, and what would have been the most secure method?
The least secure method is what you call hot wallets, which are wallets that are connected to the internet.
And that's a physical wallet. So you're saying somebody could have taken that physical wallet?
Oh, it's on your computer, on your desktop. That's anything that's connected to the internet. Cold storage is something that you put. It's normally a device, like a little piece of paper, and you put your crypto in there, and it's disconnected from the internet. So, which means it's safe. You can store it somewhere in a bank or something. But the least secure is having it in a hot wallet. Hot wallet is something it's a crypto wallet that's connected to the internet.
Always on.
Right, it's always on. A cold wallet or cold storage is something that's not connected to the internet.
Offline.
Right, it's offline.
So tell me this, so you kind of answered my question. You can have more than one wallet, right?
Yes, you can have many wallets. Yes.
So the reason why I'm saying that, and hold on to that idea of many wallets. Say, somebody had the misfortune of being kidnapped, and the kidnapper, with the poisonous do-rag, he wants you to show him your balance. It'd be smart to have several wallets. He doesn't know, the criminal doesn't know how many wallets you have.
No.
Boy, if you have all your cryptocurrency in one wallet and the criminal says, show me your wallet, you lose everything. But if you have more than one wallet, you get to give them a little something and you still have, have some other money.
Right. That would be a decoy wallet.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of these guys attend these events, these blockchain events, these Bitcoin events, whether it's Puerto Rico, whether it's in the United States, or whether it's in Europe or Africa, and especially Asia too, because Asia is really big on cryptos. And they're going to start spotting people out in the audience, and they're going to start taking note. They're going to start performing social engineering tactics, having these nice conversations. Hey, would you mind coming to this elementary school and having a conversation with some kindergartners about blockchain or something like that? And that's you're under the bleachers at a school, getting your back blown out by some thugs, telling you give up the crypto. It's gonna happen. All these people who go to these blockchain conferences and these crypto conferences, they're all targets. You're not there for nothing. You're not there for anything. I mean, you're not there for nothing. You're there for a reason, and they know that you're there. So,
wow, scary.
Yeah, we live in a different time. And like this guy was tortured. It didn't take much to torture him to get what they wanted, and they made out with a lot. A couple of iPhones, couple of laptops, some cash, and his wallet.
Man.
Right.
So get this information while you can, folks. Because when I get my money, I'm out here.
A while ago, a couple of years ago on Reddit, there was a person that posted something. And so one of these people that say, I come from the future and the future is this. And they were saying there were these citadels where people who got rich on crypto, they isolated themselves from the people who didn't get rich on crypto. And the only thing that needed to put you to be rich was like 0.001% of a Bitcoin. But they were saying how people were getting killed because of crypto. The Winklevoss twins were killed, and citadels across the world were built because the people that got rich off crypto, they're trying to protect themselves. And I'm not saying that that's true. What I'm trying to say is it's going to come to a point where security is going to become even more of what it is today. Because now people are begging people, hey, get in crypto. The first single person that's going to be a trillionaire is going to come. Damn, she loud. Is going to come because of crypto. I'm begging people like, again, this is a wealth transfer. This is your time. You need to get in this once in a lifetime type of deal. And they're saying no. So when you become rich, they're going to come after you. So security is going to become big. I perceive that is going to be one industry that's going to be that's going to have a lot of jobs, and guns ain't going nowhere.
So yeah, people gonna start putting in. When you get that kind of much money, you may end up volunteering to put a RFID chip in you, and then you go to your wallet. You can hit a couple of keystrokes to set off an alarm. People come,
No, you just log in through biometrics. That's all. I mean, you use your finger, use your eye, use your retina. All that stuff will be put in place. It's already in place right now on your phone. So.
Oh no, I'm talking in terms of the GPS thing, something that could signal some authorities where you are and that you're in trouble.
Okay.
Like you go and you log into your account, you hit this extra keystroke, and that keystroke is like trouble.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody's gonna come up with a solution. Somebody can come up with something.
Yeah, I mean, the black community hasn't really caught up that quickly yet in terms of in terms of thievery, but it will at some point be a case where you have your talented 10th will be digital.
Right.
They'll start tracking people down by doxing you on YouTube. You already see that happening now.
Right.
All right, let's go to the next article.
I'm gonna get me a cave, a bat cave. How much is a bat cave?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure somebody will build it for you.
All right, this next article is from AlJazeera.com. I hate these pop-ups, man, with a passion. China and Argentina signed currency swap deal after G20 summit. The new deal, an extension of a swap signed by the two countries last year, brings the total swap amount to $18.7 billion. Argentina's central bank has signed a deal with its Chinese counterpart to expand a currency swap program by $8 billion, the bank said in a statement. The agreement is an extension of a swap first agreed between the two countries in July 2017. The new deal, announced on Sunday during a state visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping, brings the total swap up to $18.7 billion. In a currency swap, the first party borrows a specified amount of foreign currency from the counterparty, while at the same time the lending a corresponding amount to the counterparty in the currency that it holds. President Mauricio, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, Marci of Argentina, said she and also announced more than 30 agricultural and investment deals. So it looks like they're borrowing the yuan or the renminbi to actually make purchases of other goods. Argentina's currency has taken a hit over the last few years, especially since Cristina, the former president of Argentina, Fernand, actually left. So they've been trying to recover for quite some time, and financially since the 2008 collapse. What was that, Lionel?
I have a question.
When does this take effect?
Now.
And what you say they're getting currencies and agriculture and what else?
No. They did a currency swap, but they also signed a deal for some agriculture and investment products. So what it sounds like to me is that Argentina is borrowing money from borrowing the currency, the yuan or the renminbi, to make purchases on other goods around the world. So their spending power is very dismal, right? The Argentine dollar doesn't really go very far, but the renminbi or the yuan actually does, right? They can actually make more purchases in China or in other places that do accept the yuan or the renminbi.
So who's selling agricultural products?
China.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, now I don't can someone understand why? Well, fill me in on this one. One country is holding the currency of another country. Why? I don't understand.
Because the value of the currency in Argentina isn't worth anything. It doesn't have the spending power. It's not strong like the dollar is, right? The dollar is the strongest currency on the market, but Argentina can't. The amount of rate between the United States and Argentina, it would put Argentina into more debt. So if they go with the yuan, or the renminbi, that is similar in that has some more value to it, but is actually accepted around the world, it actually gives them more spending power. Basically, it's like converting it from one currency to it's like converting a Litecoin to a Bitcoin. It's basically the equivalent of what they're getting.
And from my perspective, from the way of course, I'm looking at it like a trader. When the dollar finishes this rise, I mean, it's got to get going again. At the end of that, and when it resumes its normal trend, which is down, those that Argentinian currency is going to be valuable. It's going to switch. It's the trend is going to switch. Oil and those energy and metals are going to become more valuable, and so China is basically getting something at a pretty decent price right now that's going to be worth a lot more, say a couple of years down the road.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it's a short-term win for Argentina and a long-term win for China. So China's like, okay, I'll let you eat the lib now. You can eat now, but I'll eat later. You eat now, I eat later.
Yeah, it's a 4X deal.
Yeah.
On a massive scale, right? I mean, most people who do 4X, you know, they do a little bit of currency swap here and there, but you know, when you're talking about two nation states dealing with each other, those are massive currency swaps.
Right.
All right, let me go to the next article. All right, this one is from the dailymaverick.co.za. This is the right time to host the Africa Investment Forum. We should have got to this last week or so, but it's better late than never. So one of Africa's astute intellectual and revered political figures, Amilcar Cabral, once observed, I'm not going to read this whole thing, I'm just going to read this paragraph. Always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's heads. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children. Cabral's observation resonates with the mood and broad objectives of the inaugural Africa Investment Forum, popularly dubbed Davos of Africa. Ours is not about things in anyone's heads, but more about unlocking economic development potential intended to change the face of Africa, previously characterized as a dark continent and mostly dependent on foreign aid for her prosperity and survival. This August in historic Africa Investment Forum could have taken place anywhere in the continent. It could have been held in Kigali, Nairobi, and Addis Ababa. It could have been held in Abidjan, Accra, and Lagos. It could have been held in Cape Town or Cairo. We are honored that it's held in Johannesburg, the home of the two sentinels, me and Albertini Sisulu, and President Nelson Mandela. Basically, this is a very long article. It's talking about the recent forum for African development and investment. So what I'll do here is scroll over to this afdb.org and African Development Bank Group. And coincidentally, we talked about this last week. I actually mentioned that Italy has been wanting to make investments inside Africa. They had a whole forum on this back in November. And what you see here is the president of the African Development Bank Group with the Italian finance minister. Europe's future lies in the south, not the north, says Italian finance minister in Africa's conference. So they're talking about making major investments into Africa, into the continent. There's a high probability that Italy may try to get out of the European Union because they can't compete, for one, because the currency is killing them. The euro is killing them. And number two, there's nothing popping in Europe right now. All of the growth is happening right beneath their feet, which is in Africa, and China is in there heavy. So now they're battling, you know, for opportunity in Africa, or what's left of opportunity in Africa. And we have these discussions every week, and I'll read this little paragraph here. Africa is a continent of great change and opportunities. However, Europe finds it difficult to understand that its future lies in the south and not in the north, said Giovanni Trilla, Italian Minister of Finance and Economy. He was speaking in Rome at a conference on Africa, challenges and opportunities, Italy and Africa Development Bank. So big things are happening. This whole page, I'll drop this in the chat as well. This page is actually dedicated to, investment. So if you go to like topics and sectors, news and events, if you sign up, you'll get periodic emails and things like that that talks about some of the development that's happening on the ground and how you can actually get a loan from the African Development Bank if you have a pretty sound business strategy. So they're giving away money right now as we speak. You can look up some of the stories. Let me see if I can go to yes, I can go to the project portfolio, and let me just see the solar power project. And what it does is it gives you a breakdown of cost of what they're lending out. So 645,000 or 645 million. I don't even know what currency that is. ZAR. Not entirely sure.
Wait, what? 600 and what?
45 million.
I think that's Zambian.
Yeah, I think that is Zambia. I want to say it's Zambia. Yeah, but that's the point that I'm making. So I'll make sure I drop that in the chat. There's a whole lot of things going on, that we're not privy to.
And the article said this century is century of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I said he wanted to be. It's funny. I mean, for them to quote Amilcar Cabral, because he was a revolutionary. West Africa was revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to quote him, reading between the lines, maybe they're trying to do. He's trying to say they want to do revolutionary things.
Mm-hmm.
And it did say they want it to be to benefit Africans and the African diaspora. I don't know how much of the African diaspora that they count. I think it's good. It's great. Much of it has to be for Africans. I don't believe in this. Oh, you have Chinese Africans or white Africans or that. That's just that breaks down the race that is Africa and allows everyone to be African in order to take advantage of African sources and resources. But it has to be for Africans. Period. That's it. That's all I have to say about it.
Indigenous Africans.
Indigenous Africans, yeah.
Oh, well, did you have anything you want to add to this?
No.
All right, we'll move on to the next article. All right, this one is from CoinTelegraph.com. 7 EU states signed declaration to promote blockchain use. 7 Southern European Union member states have released a declaration calling for help in the promotion of distributed ledger technology, DLT, use in the region, the Financial Times reports. The declaration was reportedly initiated by Malta and signed by 6 other member states, France, Italy, Cyprus, Portugal, Spain, and Greece, during a meeting of EU transport ministers in Brussels on Tuesday. The participating governments explained that DLT, one type of which is blockchain, could be a game changer for southern EU economies. Namely, the document cites education, transport, mobility, shipping, land registry, customs, company registry, and healthcare as services which can be transformed by this technology. The group also cites blockchain's tech's use for protecting citizens' privacy and making bureaucratic procedures more efficient. The report further notes that this technology has potential beyond digital government services. In mid-November, a member of the executive board of the European Central Bank, um, Benoit, or whatever his name is, sorry, declared that he considered Bitcoin the evil spawn of 2008 financial crisis. Also in November, banking groups BBVA and Banco Santander joined the EU International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, IATBA. Cointelegraph reported. The association in itself is set to be launched in quarter one 2019 and aims to develop blockchain infrastructure and standards. What's your take on this, Lionel?
It's good that the adoption of blockchain is becoming more and more and more apparent. You have, especially the southern EU states, the ones that need it the most, that will help them in their financial woes. Um, like me and you discussed on the pre-show, you're going to start to see more of a proliferation in blockchain certifications and blockchain training. The uses of a blockchain has yet to be even thought of. The mass expanse is said to be Internet 2.0. And I know a lot of people that listen to this may not have been around when the internet was first starting. We used to get the AOL discs in the mail of free time on internet. Even then, just to think what the internet has grown to be in the early 90s, early to mid 90s up to 95, and we're into 2018 and thinking what the internet is, just to conceive YouTube, just to conceive um, eBay and Amazon's, just to think of what blockchain can aid do to the internet, can aid do to other sectors of the world that it can help into internet is inconceivable. So I see people are jumping on this. They can see that the use cases is widely there, and I think it's great, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I like your analogy with the internet. It's sort of like, yeah, I think that's a real good one, because we don't really understand all the ways the blockchain can be used and how it's going to revolutionize things. You know, just as we didn't understand about this thing called the World Wide Web, just how it really was going to change life. You know, like, when was the last time you seen the Yellow Pages? Do they still deliver those?
Yeah.
Why? What do you use your Yellow Pages for?
To hold up your couch in some hoods.
Okay, right. So yeah, I think, yeah. So that information that's discussed here about learning blockchain development on edx.org. I think the people who jump on that, they have no idea how that's going to pay off, how big it's going to pay off. I think they're going to end up underestimating how much their return on their investment of their time to get into blockchain development. So it's here. It's here to stay. It's it's going to be a part of our future.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
All right. I guess my opinion on it real quick would be that I think Malta is really driving the whole entire blockchain adoption in Europe. I think they want to be the the spearheads behind the technology and kind of set the standards for themselves, right? So if everybody follows Malta, then what happens is Malta becomes the benchmark.
Agree.
So what are they? I guess, I mean, what do you? How do they envision using it?
They mentioned it in the article. So healthcare, transportation, land registration deeds, banking, citizenship, privacy. So there's areas where they can, because they're a union, right? They're in the European Union, so it makes it easier. Makes it easier for each country to actually register their people and actually create mechanisms for freedom of movement and transportation.
So let me see. I'm just trying to see if I understand this. So just like your run of the mill paperwork and official documents that you have on file with some of those types of agencies you just mentioned, federal agencies or state agencies, it's using American parallel. That information would be on a blockchain?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, anything that can be written on paper can be written on the blockchain. Can be put on the blockchain. So let's say you in Malta and your transportation, such as your red lights, are on a blockchain to make the traffic less of a burden. So let's say somebody run a red light. You implement a code, which is smart contracts, and say, hey, this license plate ran the red light. This license plate belongs to this person. This person lives here. And the blockchain automatically dispenses a ticket to you with evidence saying you ran this red light. So it's automatic, it's more convenient. Well, efficient, it's not convenient.
I wouldn't use the traffic light analogy, but I would use tolls, right? Because that's what Europe uses to pay for its infrastructure, is the tolls.
Okay.
Okay, so are we talking about expediting this whole Big Brother is watching thing? Are we talking about blockchain being a device or a tool to make to compromise our privacy?
No, it provides privacy.
Well, transparency and privacy, I guess I'm not seeing them as synonymous.
No, it's not. It's not about them being synonymous. So there's two forms of the blockchain that are there. So you have your public chain or public infrastructure, and then you have your private base as well. And I'm pretty sure that for finance, your private would be used because European laws, right? And then
there's two different blockchains. A private blockchain.
Your public blockchain would be used for citizen registries and stuff like that, land deeds and things like that. So that connects people to resources.
Right, information is already kind of publicly available right now.
It should be available, yes.
All right. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the next article.
Interesting. I know who's going to really be happy about this. Lawyers. Lawyers.
Yeah. All right, this one is from coinintelegraph.com. Binance to launch its own blockchain Binance chain in the coming months. Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange by trading volume, will launch its own blockchain Binance chain in the coming months, as the company revealed a tweet on December 4th. The new Binance-backed blockchain aims to provide a basis for creating new cryptocurrencies and initial coin offering tokens, as the company said in the tweet. Binance is pushing for blockchain adoption and doing many things to help advancement of the industry. We will have the Binance chain ready in the coming months, on which millions of projects can easily issue tokens. According to Forbes, Binance announced their plans during a recent private event in Singapore hosted by Forbes Asia. Speaking at the Decrypting Blockchain for Business event, Binance CEO Shao stated that the new plans will actually actually indicate an old vision of crypto, which will expectedly lead to increasing its adoption on a global scale. Um, in order to in order to reach a fundamental payment adoption increase, TZ said that the company will be pushing really hard into that space since their original intent hasn't taken off for some reason. Forbes author Michael Del Castillo, who unveiled the recent news, commented on Twitter that the comment that yes, it's just written poorly. He expects that there will be millions of coins and thousands of blockchains. What do you think about this, Lionel?
My bad, I was muted. Um, Binance is growing. They are implementing things that are trying to have crypto and blockchain together adopted, push the adoption rate of that. About them creating a blockchain to get a person to able to have a person to make ICOs on their blockchain and so forth. And they said there will be millions of coins and blockchains. It's good and bad. Someone can make a excellent um, blockchain and that can really hit home and help a lot of people out. But on the flip side of that, how many scams you got to go through to get that? So it's good and bad. I applaud Binance for taking this initiative and pushing the adoption of crypto and blockchain. Yeah.
Well, they're big enough to affect change. I saw in that article you had up there, have like what's it say, $587 billion a day traded on Binance. Is that what it said?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So they are anticipating people, really using these coins. It's not just for trade, but for currency, using it as currency.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the next article. This next article is from mbcrypto.com. 12.3 million Litecoin worth $380 million moved into new wallets by suspected whale.
That's where they went. I lost it. I don't know where I put that.
Yeah, crypto whale. The Litecoin network has witnessed 41 wallets containing an exact amount of 300,000 LTC, each coming to the rich list recently. The wallets in total hold a whopping 12.3 million LTC, which is 20% of the total coins in circulations. That's a lot. The address is seen on the rich list show deposits between November 30th and December 1st, 2018, and the total amount of LTCs come to a net worth of $381 million, with $31 per LTC at the time of transfer. These 41 wallets together hold 20% of the market cap of Litecoin. As a result, I hate this stupid thing. As a result of this, the Litecoin network witnessed more than 60% of his market cap moved in just one day. The movement of funds to these three possibilities. The first being a whale buying the dip and then splitting up the funds into multiple wallets. The second reason, which is more of a speculation, is that some institutional buyers are loading up their accounts ahead of the launch into the cryptoverse. The last reason could be exchange moving its users' funds into cold storage wallets, or just securing the funds. Lionel talked about cold storage a lot. As Franklin Richards, the founding director of Litecoin Foundation, pointed out, it could very well be an institution like Bach or Fidelity, but is still a wild speculation. You know, Fidelity has been active lately.
That's a whale. I understand they're saying a speculation of a crypto exchange moving their customers cryptos, but that's 60% of the market cap. You know, that means that would mean one exchange would hold much of the Litecoin. 1% of the Litecoin. That is an institutional whale.
Now,
That
what was the money in? What was where did the money come from? It said, you know, if
they're
it was,
moving. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was saying the whales moved the Litecoin coins into a wallet. Well, what was it in before before it became before the money got transferred to Litecoin?
It was probably from one wallet. They probably moved it from one wallet to multiple wallets to break up the centralization of it. That's probably what happened.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
And they can't sell it. I mean, you know, or maybe these are whales responsible for like, you know, the decline that Bitcoin is going through. Could be. And you see it drop like that, like it's dropping.
Mhm.
Maybe we need to start paying attention more to the volume, Bitcoin volume.
Mm. Well, yeah. You know, everything is dropping. Bitcoin volume is dropping, but it's still up there in the multi billions. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I had to say about it.
That's all I got too. Lucky whale.
Were you working in the tool shop or something like that, Dogwell?
Mm-mm-mm.
I was eating.
It sounded like a Craftsman Tools drop.
It does. It really does. It really
thought
does.
you thought you was working at Sears. I was like, I thought they closed the doors already.
Yeah, you had me thinking right now. Go get me some Craftsman tools before before I can't get them.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
All right,
Yeah.
this one is from ArsTechnica.com. Ethereum falls below $100, down 93% from its January high. The month-long cryptocurrency slide continued overnight with Ether by the cryptocurrency of the Ethereum network, falling below $100 for the first time since May 2017. Ether's value is down 93% from its January high above $1,400. Bitcoin reached 2018 low of around $3,500 last week. It's now trading at around $3,700, down 80% of its high, almost $20,000 last December. There doesn't seem to be. Let me increase this. There doesn't seem to be any specific cause for the recent declines. Rather, the steadily declining prices seem to reflect a general decline of enthusiasm for the cryptocurrency. Blockchain-oriented startups raised $597 million in venture capital in 2016 and $876 million in 2017 and $3.1 billion so far in 2018, according to data compiled by CoinDesk. Despite the massive years of long investment, the technology hardly seems closer to mainstream adoption than it was a couple years ago. Some of the most successful blockchain startups to date have been exchanges like Coinbase that enable users to trade cryptocurrencies and conventional money, but no one has figured out how to build a widely used consumer applications based on the blockchain technology. Unless and until that happens, we may continue to see that the value of cryptocurrencies continue to go down over time. Virtual currencies, virtual currencies surely have some value, as it's hard to trace store value and a way to conduct illicit transactions. But the sky high valuations of the last year were based on an assumption that blockchain technology would have broader uses. And so far, that hasn't proved to be true. I don't know. I think Malta would disagree with you on that. What do you think, Lionel?
Yeah, I part of this kind of irritated me. Saying that okay, in the title, keep the page on. In the subtitle, it says the blockchain world has yet to find a killer app to drive mainstream adoption. That implies one single app will be the holy um, the one thing that will drive mainstream adoption when it's not. People have to stop thinking about, oh, if this one killer app would happen, then we all can have adoption. No, it's going to be a plethora of things. Just to go back to the internet analogy. It wasn't one website that just did it. Porn.com didn't just do it for everybody. You know, it was the whole proliferation, the whole expansion of the internet and what the internet provided, the services, the benefits, and everything under the internet umbrella that made the internet more adaptable in society. Email, being able to make phone calls, speak to people across the country over Skype, everything. So different things, everything together in the blockchain slash crypto space will help create mainstream adoption of this nascent class. Not just one thing. It irritates when people say, "Oh, one thing," because people start to believe that. People start to believe that singular mind frame thing when it's not. Now, opposed to Ethereum falling below $100, I don't think nobody saw that at the beginning of the year because Ethereum topped out at $1,400 and now it's $95. I
And
don't
it was
think. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it was steadily moving at 600.
Right, right. For the longest through the year, it was going sideways for the longest. Now it's under $100.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think too many people saw that. Now, to go to take $100 and make $1,000 out of it, or $1,400 out of it, that's not a bad return. Well, not even $100 is below $100 and make because if it, I really don't want to say if when it reaches all time high again, that's not a bad return. But instead of people saying, "Hey, see, cryptos they going to zero. I told you." Instead of saying that stuff, I would say, "Hey, there's blood in the streets." Dollar Will would say, this is not the right time to buy. I'm starting to follow his word and other technical analysts now. But there's blood in the streets. Things are cheap. This is where people make money.
Yeah, I mean we're see of the people in the chat, hit one if you are hodling. I just want to know, we got any hodlers in the house? I'm gonna flip over and look. Anybody out there hodling? Hit one. Y'all are either lying or smart.
Well, especially after that guy got robbed in South Africa, I probably don't want the same thing coming to them.
Because nobody's hitting one. Okay, I like that because we don't hodl around here. We don't hodl over here. We read the charts. Okay, we read the charts. Just know that you don't have to be get the exact bottom. You can come in a little after. It's safer. I mean, I'm just a little after. You won't miss much of it, but you lose more money being early than you do being late.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. It's like a difficult thing to train yourself to think that way, because when the rookie traders it's like they trade with their ego. They want to get the perfect bottom price, and you learn that let other people put their money in ahead of you and create the bottom. The price is more than likely going to it's going to go sideways. And when you see something falling straight down, it's like straight vertical, the next move is usually sideways, because that volume has to come in and take that moving average that's functioning as a price resistance, Real money has to step in and turn that downward sloping resistance to horizontal. It takes a lot of money to turn that thing horizontal. And you don't want that to be your money that turns it horizontal. Let the whales come in and turn it horizontal, create the bottom, and you'll see the moving average moving left to right instead of east to west. It'll be, I mean, instead of it moving north and south, the moving average will be moving east and west. That's when you want it. That's when you start to ask yourself, is this the right time? And stick around on the Brain Trust. We'll take care of you. We'll give you our best opinion. You will seek your own advice from your own financial advisor, but we'll give you our best opinion. But you can go. That what I just said to you makes common. That's just common sense. That if the resistance is vertical, it's not time yet. If that line, that moving average that was functioning as resistance is horizontal, it might be time, but it's definitely not time when it's vertical.
All right, we'll move on to the last article. This one is from CNN.com, CNN Business. Homeowners have lost $156 billion by living in a black neighborhood. I'll read the first couple of paragraphs. Home ownership lies at the heart of American dream, represents success, opportunity, and wealth, and it should. But new data helps confirm that racism is taking money out of black homeowners' collective pockets to a painful sum of $156 billion, keeping those who are striving for the American dream from actually reaping its benefits. Compared to investing in the stock market and other ways to grow a nest egg, home ownership is still the most consistent and accessible way to build wealth over time. And while home ownership rates vary considerably between whites and people of color, it's typically the largest asset among all people who hold it, regardless of race. That's why these new data this new data merit action in order to alleviate this gesturing societal blight. It's a pretty long article. Yeah, it's a long article. I'll read this one last paragraph. We've known for some time that racism limited blacks' housing options in ways that lowered the value of homes, de jure and de facto segregation, racially restricting housing convenience that prohibited blacks from buying in certain areas throughout the 20th century, and racially biased redlining from the 1930s beyond the passage of Fair Housing Act of 1968, which deemed majority of black neighborhoods too risky for mortgage lenders, isolated blacks in areas that realized low levels of investment than their white counterparts. Our new data shows that the average U.S. metropolitan area homes in neighborhoods where the share of population is at least 50% black are valued at roughly half of the price as homes in neighborhoods with little to no black residents. Even those who acknowledge our racist history, the 50% price differences isn't about racial bias. It's about accepting the effects of the past at face value. It's assumed lower housing quality, underfunded schools, and crime, all consequences of racism and poverty. At a deserving price point, our study tested these assumptions. It's a very interesting article. I'll drop it in the chat. Dollar will jump in on this.
That's a deep subject. One, all right, we're 13% of the population. Market value is the opinion of the majority.
You got a lot of feedback, Dollar Will.
I'm getting feedback. Okay.
Mute yourself for 1 second.
Oh, and also I want to add in when Donald will come back. Can he also explain why people continue to say owning the house is your way of I don't understand it.
Yeah, if Dollar Will can log off and log back on.
Okay.
Hmm. Did you have any comments on that one?
Myself,
Yeah.
um, I mean, he's only revisiting some of the information that's already been put out there. But I think part of his problem is that it's denial aspect by white people, right? By pale faced people. Oh, that doesn't happen. What are you talking about? Why do you think they even had laws passed in the first place?
That's a good point.
Yeah, racism is expensive. It's an expensive practice. Whether you're talking about the housing or you're talking about institutional racism through crime, through criminal justice, right? So locking up people and how much money it spends to police an area, how much money it costs to uh, detain the person in prison, judges, DAs, um, sheriffs, COs, all that stuff costs money, and they're spending billions of dollars on it. So
Yeah. All the articles talked about the red line in the 1930s. Like you said, these if the racism didn't exist, this wouldn't have been practiced. Highways being built right in the middle of black communities. That happened all across America, not just one or two neighborhoods. So it's two cities. These practices wouldn't have been practiced. Yeah,
yeah,
pretty
but
much.
it also robbed a lot of black people of their wealth, right, or potential wealth, right? So there's just like in the market, right? You can kind of look at charts, and you can look at what happened, 20 years ago. You can kind of project where the market is going to go based on the technical analysis. Well, if you replace the charts with black people, and you looked at their potential, and then you looked at where the market is going, and you can kind of gauge perceived growth into the billions, if not trillions of dollars. You see how much racism is actually costing people.
Hmm. No comment on it. Everything that we're saying right now in the article, between what we're saying in the article is hit on the right nails. You can't really argue. You can't make a sound. A person can't make a strong argument against. We in the article just said, oh, it doesn't exist. That red liner was nothing. No, you can't really make an argument against it. You know, and it did rob money out of the community.
Mhm. And there's no guarantee by the federal government to actually partake in repayment or repatriation of the wealth that was lost. And we're not even talking about Black Wall Street. We're just talking about in general.
Yeah. Anybody in the chat? Tony Nike want to know if Dollar Will's teaching the class on trading.
Also, we are not certified financial planner. We are CFP, so
Yes, please go to zfp.net to find a certified financial planner in your area by putting in your city, state, and
yeah, I don't think Dollar Will's gonna be coming back tonight. So,
yeah, I was just taking long to reboot restart a Mac.
well, it is a Mac, so
Uh,
I guess we're going to open mic now. What do you think?
about the housing part.
No, it's in general. We're open mic right now.
Oh,
Dollar Will coming back.
really was a good show. That the first article we went over was a good kickoff to the show.
That was so far back, I don't even remember. Let me look at the
About
document.
the Jeff Bezos and Sears.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a man. That was interesting. That was as we said, we were squawking on there on that one. That was a good one.
Hmm.
About the other articles, like Delaware said, a lot of articles we read talks about start pre- start preparing. Don't go out buying houses, getting loans, things of that nature. A lot of the articles was geared toward that.
Hmm. Let me see if I can pull up something else that I was looking at.
Excuse me. What about yourself?
Yeah, I had an article I wanted to go over. I think it was. Yeah, I'll go over it now because I don't think I'm gonna be here next week. So share my screen. All right, this one is from Quartz Africa, QZ.com. What's the best way to define Africa's middle class? I sure do look like Chicago,
Hold
like
on.
Dollar General.
What's up, folks?
Hey,
You know, you know what?
mm-hmm.
Can y'all hear me?
We hear you. You know what? No matter how much black people in America say, "Oh, I ain't African. We not alike."
Mm-hmm.
Bull crap. We are more alike than people would even dare admit. And how the middle class, just like Dollar Will said, Prince George County had some of the most foreclosures. How the middle class want to put their toes on that line, and not only put their toes on that line, but they want to reach past it as far as they can. I got a fear that's gonna happen in Africa. They want the of consumerism. That bug will bite so many people, and people are going to want to be like people. And the images. I mean, look at that picture. Look at the images. Save big, low prices. It's like a big Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna they're gonna see Western food.
Afromart.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. They're gonna see. Look at the left. Cheetos, zigzags, all that. They're gonna see Western food as making it as, oh, I can afford, because their Western food is more expensive than right now, at least right now, than natural food. They're gonna see, oh, I'm able to eat Western food. I'm able to go to McDonald's every Friday. They're gonna see being as making it, as having money.
This paragraph is a pretty long article.
Yeah, look at the big three.
Uh, and that guys, it,
You're breaking up.
it must. Can't hear me?
Was Mike Borgen to you, Lionel, or is it just me?
It's you. You're Borgen.
No, yeah, he's breaking up a little bit.
All right. Let's try this again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Clear.
All right. We'll read the first couple of paragraphs. The Africa Rising narrative has been hinged on the continent's middle class, but the methods used to define the size of that population has been inconsistent, to say the least. In its Middle East of Pyramid report in 2011, the Africa Development Bank defined the middle class as persons with yearly incomes exceeding 3,900 US dollars. While the World Bank broadly defines middle class as those who earn $12 to $15 per day. The oft-cited pitfall of using fixed income cutoffs to define the middle class is that it leaves no room for income fluctuations and vulnerabilities to health and business emergencies. In a recent report, Frame, a data consulting firm, has opted for a different tack and defines Africa's consumers class based mainly upon asset ownership and education levels, since the measures are less vulnerable to seasonal income fluctuations. Shifts in consumer and spending trends rooted in local nuances like harvest and planting seasons make purely monetary based segmentation susceptible to higher error rates, the report argues. Assets measured included refrigerators, mobile phones, televisions, automobiles, and computers, with each influencing consumption patterns differently. Owning a refrigerator, for instance, allows household purchase larger volumes of food, thus spending more, while automobiles can increase frequency of consumption. Frayem's analysis identifies in a middle class population of 330 million people, unevenly distributed across the continent. Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria, Morocco, referred to as the Power Five markets, are home to two-thirds of the continent's consumer class with 219 million people. Below that rung, led by Ethiopia, Frontier 15 markets are countries with consumer class populations ranging from 2 to 10 million. The rest of the continent consisting mainly of smaller countries, is home to just 17 million of the continent's consumer class and offer much more limited opportunities for consumer facing companies and investors given their small fragmented markets, the report says. So Egypt with 78 million people, size of the consumer class population, Nigeria is 52, South Africa is 36, Morocco is 29, Algeria is 25, Ethiopia is 10 and a half, Angola 9.3, Kenya 8.7, Ghana 8.4, Tanzania 8.3. With you know, regardless of the location of Africa's middle class, household spending has grown steadily to reach $1.6 trillion last year after crossing $1 trillion mark in 2010. Household spending is projected to hit $2.5 trillion by 2025, according to estimates by McKinsey Global Institute. Much much of the continued growth will be fueled by population spurts across the continent. Africa's population will have an additional 1.3 billion people by 2050. 1.3 billion people by 2050. Damn. And with the migration to urban cities for access to economic opportunities and better living standards continuing, African governments are spending over $100 billion to build 21st century cities to assuage housing shortages. But increased consumption spending and lifestyle changes are coming at a cost. More supermarket shopping in Kenya is increasing the risk of poor nutrition, and across the continent, the rise of fast food chains is having a similar effect as sharp rises in obesity levels has been recorded in urban centers over the last 25 years.
We are more alike than people would dare say we are.
Mm-hmm.
Black Americans are the test of what you can do in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do it in Black America, you can damn sure. I gotta stop cursing. Believe you can bet your bottom dollar you can do it in Africa. If Black women are acting this way in America, you better believe they'll act the same way in Africa. If a percentage of Black women are obese and a percentage of Black men are obese in America, you better believe it'll be the same way in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, we are the same people.
yeah,
No
yeah,
doubt about it. You know, it's funny you get when you talk to you if you go to Africa and they'll see you if you're around them long enough where they can see your habits long enough, you will do things and they'll point it out to you. Things that they do. It's weird. It's weird.
and
We just don't have exposure to one another. But when we do have exposure, we see the commonalities. I mean, not that, and also, you know, like there's a Richard Pryor joke. Everybody over there look like somebody over here. That's true too.
right. And Delaware, won't you tell me one day somebody was trying to fight you? Africa was trying to fight you because they didn't believe you when you said you.
Oh yeah. He thought I was being okay, complex. Use that word, a snob. He thought I was being a snob because he thought I was African and I was from America. He thought I was being a snob.
Yeah, he thought you were lying to him.
Thought I was lying. You know, because you know from the way I looked, this was in South Africa. They thought I was one of them. You know, I had people coming up to me speaking in various tribal languages. I didn't know what they were talking about, but they thought I was one of them.
Yeah, but I point that out, and all I say is to say, I'm not saying, um, no, I don't want Africa to be uh, a prosperous continent. I'm just saying, don't be a Western prosperous continent. Be an African prosperous continent. And a lot of these um, major economies now, they're going to look to Africa
Mm-hmm.
to themselves. And what they're going to do, they're not going to say, hey, Africa, we just want to trade with you all. No, they're going to dump their ways onto Africa, meaning they're going to dump the high medical costs. They're going to dump the wanting 4 and 5 Rolls Royces. This over gluttonous of consumerism on Africa, and they're going to, huh?
Hypercapitalism.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it works both ways now. I mean, they want it. I mean, America has done among America's greatest exports. I would say the first world, Africa and Europe, but mostly America first. One of our greatest exports has been culture. You know, everyone around the world has an idea what an American is and what an American lifestyle is, even if they've never been here. You know, from what they understand of it from television and music and movies, they have an idea what it is, and a lot of them want it.
Mm-hmm. You Yeah, you're even starting to see fight culture pop up in Africa too. So people just, doing that world star stuff, fighting each other and saying world star in the background.
Right, right. And you have people when you or in some places in the world, people when they see a Black American, they expect you to be like a hip hop artist. You go, no, I'm not a rapper.
Or do you sell drugs, right?
Right.
Right, right.
The weave, the skin bleaching, the buying of name brand, constantly buying name brand clothes, thinking they're more superior than regular clothes. That, like you said, that whole culture is going to just
Conspicuous consumption,
right.
That's
Conspicuous
it.
consumption is just going to take a lot of money out. And I just say, be a African prosperous country. You know, it,
I
that's
think see once it's kind of, I understand what you're saying, but once capitalism is in it, I
that's
think the
rough.
best we can hope is that these are African produced products. If they're gonna lust after products, let it be products that they own and control.
Mhm.
But of course, the developed world is going to want to pump American made products, American owned and controlled products through that pipeline. So that's the real struggle.
It's the lust, like you said. They
Well, it's
lust
who
in that.
controls it. Who controls the thing that people lust over? I mean, somebody is once the economic system is capitalism, the people are going to be, for lack of a better word, let's say seduced and manipulated into wanting things that they had no idea that they wanted. So I think once we're talking about capitalism, that's unavoidable. Uh, the issue then becomes who owns that product, where does the dollar stop once that product is sold. If they are buying products owned and manufactured by Africans, then they won't become
Right,
economically enslaved.
right. Because the
Well,
money is staying in Africa.
Correct.
well, they can also start taxing some of the consumption, like most countries do in Africa. High taxation on cars and things of that nature, especially cars that have like higher than 2 liters an engine.
Mhm.
They tend to have high taxation on them. So that's why you see a lot of cars are diesel. They're very low liters. I think like 1.6 or 1.8 or something like that, but they're diesel. So that's why you see a lot of that sort of consumption. But even in that realm, I think that the desire to buy Mercedes and stuff like that, you can only spend what your wallet allows. I don't think that Africans have the same problem that African Americans have, where they go out and buy shit they can't afford, and if the repo man is at the house. That's a little bit different, right? The structure is a little bit different over there in Africa. If they purchase something, it's pretty much theirs. They don't have any intention of giving it back.
Now, I know that that's cultural, that if I'm understanding you correctly, they like to buy things in cash. They don't like debt. Is that what you basically
They
communicate?
don't have predatory lending systems in Africa like that.
That's where I'm going. So yeah, what I'm saying is on one level, their culture is not what's the word I'm looking for? Whether you got to have it now, like we will buy some of what the
Instant
old folks used to
gratification.
say, yeah, instant gratification. We would buy things on time, as the old folks would say, buy it on time. That's the credit card. But when their banking system catches up to ours and they're able to get credit, like we can get credit, is that going to be the thing that opens the floodgate and allows them to basically become us?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't think that's going to happen. Because Africa is never. They're a more communal sort of egalitarian environment. If that makes any sense, right? I mean, people live in tightly condensed spaces, so there's an urgency to share resources, right? Whereas in the United States, people are kind of huddle in the suburbs or kind of huddle in other areas, and they don't really share their resources.
Now that communal culture, do you think prosperity can corrupt that?
No, well, if you have policies in place, I think that you can prevent a lot of that stuff. I mean, that's part of the reason why you don't see brands like Lexus in Africa, or brands like Tesla in Africa. You don't see things like that because that requires high income through high capitalization, and they don't have that. They've never had that before, because that's not the way the continent functions. It just functions differently. It's more closely aligned with Russia and China in terms of their political and economic cultures. Even in Russia, right? If you go back to the Soviet Union, they didn't have like high-end brands, right? They had their famous car was the Yugo. That kind of shows you like their way of thinking. It does the job for what it what it needs to do.
Now this is why. Oh, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Now this is why I disagree with the Yugo. That was okay. It was, excuse me, with that car. That showed how behind they were in technical terms with their cohorts in Germany and so forth. I understand what you're saying, but that lust, that allure, that to have this, to have that. I I just think Black Americans, we're the same. The Africans come here, yeah, they tend to keep their African ways, but after that first generation, it's a wrap. And that first generation,
yeah, but that's due to the environment. That's not due to them being African.
but what if their environment changes in Africa to match this
right.
environment?
Yeah, but the culture is driven by the policy, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, okay. Well, I would say the culture is also affected by the economics. Also, prosperity changes culture too.
But it doesn't change policy. Because if
Give
that was the
me
case,
an example. Give me an example of a policy you're talking about, which shields Africa from, as you say, what you call it, hypercapitalism. Give me an example of a policy which shields them.
look at the taxation on their vehicles. It's hard to get a high-end vehicle in Africa. You have to just accept whatever you can get your hands on, a Toyota or some other small base Honda or something like that.
Now that's
Right?
now, and you're talking about those cars right now from the African perspective are imports, right?
No, they're manufactured there. There's a BMW plant, and I think in South Africa, and I think there's a Mercedes plant, maybe in Kenya or something like that. Maybe it might be like in Ethiopia or something like that. I forget. There's European car plants in Africa, but what I'm saying is everybody's not driving a BMW, and everybody's not driving a Mercedes.
Right. Everybody doesn't have the money.
What I'm saying is the taxation on the vehicles is so high that you can't even get it if you wanted to. It's not worth it. When I was mentioning about the Yugo, was that Yugo was basically an Italian car. I mean, it was built off an Italian chassis. It was a Fiat. It was just rebranded. If you think about Fiat today, they still do the same exact thing. The culture in Eastern Europe hasn't really changed all that much. It's still the same. It still drives the same sort of low end vehicles. They buy cars that do exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's it. They're not buying high end BMW M3s and M5s and stuff like that. Although you do have some car enthusiasts over there, it's not like everybody's running around with the same, with Cadillacs and shit. It's not like that. The idea of an Escalade is a luxury product. There are no real luxury products like that in Africa running around like that. Because there's no market for it.
I hear you. We'll see how it goes. I'm with you, Lionel. With growth and prosperity, they gonna be stunting.
I think a lot of that is going to change because at least according to the article, it said by 2050, 1.3 billion, expect an expansion of 1.3 billion people. Right? I think it's a little bit just around hovering around a billion people. So they're talking about 300 more million people in the next in the next 35 years. Right? Africa has the AU talked about getting rid of petrol-based cars by 2050, 2045, I think.
Okay, read. We got some comments from Tony. Is this Tony? Is this Tony Lackey? Am I saying your now the last name correctly? If I am, type yes. He says Africans typically buy American version of whatever car that interests them because American version is better. Then he says I go to Ghana every year. I see BMW, Mercedes, etc. all the time, especially if it is a European version of car, which is cheaper. Let me see if I understand that, especially if it is a European version of car, which is cheaper.
Yeah, I don't quite
I don't understand the last part of that, Tony. Are you saying that the European version of the car is cheaper than what? On what's cheaper? That second entry. What's cheaper? Be clearer on that. Anyway, so yeah, so we'll see. Sounds like Tony. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was saying it's not uncommon that you see a lot of used cars being dumped into Africa because Japan does that all the time. They dumped a lot of their cars off the roads all the time that they don't consider to be past smog regulation. They'll dump it inside Africa. So that's not uncommon because Africa doesn't have any smog limits, right? They don't really have EPA laws and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm looking at what Tony wrote. He's saying if the European version is cheaper than the American car. So basically, if I understand what he's saying, they're brand conscious. If anything that's Western, like American or European, whichever is cheaper of the two, they want it. They want to buy it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's typical, right? I mean, with what some of the stuff that I've seen coming out of the African Union, some of the discussions I've seen is that they're not. And this goes back to Mugabe. What Mugabe was saying in the 70s that we don't want anything to do with Western capitalization. And I think they've done a lot of they've created a lot of policies to prevent that sort of toxic culture of spending. Now, I mean, it's not uncommon that a diplomat's son or daughter may drive around in a Mercedes. That's
Right.
that's pretty common.
Right.
That's pretty common, right?
Exactly.
You're not gonna be driving around in something raggedy. That's just the nature of being a diplomat.
Right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see because they're about to get some serious money, and Africa is a young continent, and you know we know how young people like the floss.
Yeah, Barbados, Jamaica was the same way at one point where they didn't have all those the westernized culture, right? They were still kind of isolated from all that stuff until the Americans kind of took over in the 80s. And you started to see a lot of American values on these islands. And now you go down there now, it ain't that much different than, you know, going to DC or Atlanta or something like that. It's just, you know, people copying everything that they see that the Americans do because that's what they've been influenced by. Because that's the only influence that's been limited to them. You know, Americans pretty much control the media down there,
Right.
so they copy everything that they see on TV. Even Africans too. I've seen, you know, videos on YouTube of people getting exposed. You know, African men being exposed for trying to pretend to be rappers and stuff like that. They got this thick accent, copying brothers from the States. You know, walking with the bebop and the fitted hat and all that stuff, and they try to emulate that stuff. And they go to Europe and they try to use that as leverage to get women.
Right. You know, it's like it's interesting because you know we'll see a movie or a record, you know, a song, or see, you know, music. We'll just see it as a movie or music, but it really is exporting culture and create. It's like developing a market, developing a taste for things American. It's creating a marketplace. It's creating demand. It's creating demand for us, for things American.
Yeah. Until these Africans come here and then they get stopped by the police, and now all of a sudden we all in this together, my brother.
That's right. Oh, yeah. They come here in Nigerian or whatever, and after a while, they're just Black American. They're Black.
Right. And you know what? I've seen that. Girl from Nigeria. She only been here almost like 7 years. But I told her, you can't go back. You are one of us now because I mean, she still got her traditional ways, but she's slowly becoming Black American.
And she's starting to figure out that the rest of the people in this country just see her as one of us.
Right. Right. There is no difference.
Right. Interesting.
I think we'll close it out now. Let's do something in the chat.
Let me just say, nothing much new with the charts. Maybe we'll have some good stuff next week. But hey, everything, we look at the April 2nd low in the Dow. Everything is really just considered sideways until we cross below that low of April 2nd. If the Dow goes below, makes a new low for the year 2018, you're gonna see something. You think these 800-point down days or something? Oh no, they're gonna shut the market. They're gonna shut it down. It's gonna really pick up speed. That's gonna scare the heck out of everybody. There won't be any more people making bullish arguments. There won't be any debate about whether we're bearish or not. So keep your eye on the April 2nd low for the Dow. And that's the line in the sand. That's hell if we go below that.
All right, so we'll close it out here. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow night with Black IT Talk, cloud and Linux discussion. And don't forget to come back on Monday for Space and Technology.
Peace.
Later.